Hello and welcome to the HitHard News Show with myself, Ben Blackwell. So the topics for tonight's show are going to be as follows. Firstly, we are going to talk about the unification bout which happened in the light welterweight division between Terence Crawford and Victor Postol. Then moving on to the next point, we're going to be talking about the Leeds Rumble Bill, which is promoted by Matchroom Sport live on Sky this Saturday. Then we shall be talking about the card which is happening at the Barclays Centre in Brooklyn, New York, which features Frampton versus Leo Santa Cruz headlining. Also featuring on that bill, we have long time in becoming the return of Mikey Garcia. Then after that, we're going to be talking about Adonis Stevenson versus Thomas Williams Jr., which is happening in Quebec on the 29th of July. So this Friday coming, and we'll get more into them topics in depth. So first of all, back to the start. Terence Crawford and Victor Postol. I think anyone before this fight could not be confident in picking a definitive winner. Some people lean towards Crawford, some people lean towards Postol. They were both undefeated, both the best in their divisions. Terence Crawford moving up from lightweight, capturing his light welterweight title in 2015, and Victor Postol also claimed his belt in 2015 against Lucas Matisse and was making his first defence. So the belts on the line were the WBO and WBC light welterweight, super lightweight, whatever you want to call it, 140-pound belts. So we will start off in the first round, and strangely enough, and very, very brash, which I thought at the time, within the first 20 seconds, Terence Crawford went from orthodox to southpaw, but Postol was using his jab and leaning to good effect to disrupt the rhythm of Terence Crawford. He was struggling to land his shots in the first round, and Postol was being the typical Postol, upright, using his physical size and stature to roughhouse his opponent, in this case, which was Terence Crawford. Round two was, in my opinion, quite quiet. But towards the end of that round, Terence Crawford started to, in my opinion, stamp his authority on the fight with his movement, his footwork, making Postol miss, making him lose his range, making him lose his distance. And towards the end of that round, Terence Crawford buzzed Postol in a bad way by unleashing a left hand straight down the pipe. Round three, Postol was landing his right hands, catching Terence Crawford coming in on the inside when Terence Crawford tried to unleash his body attacks, and then after that, both fighters seemed quite reluctant to lead off on the front foot. Both seemed very, very comfortable trying to counterpunch, and in that round, in my opinion, Victor Postol was a lot more active, throwing a lot more punches, but was not really, really successful with his punches. He was hitting thin air, gloves, arms, not really scoring punches, and Terence Crawford covering up extremely well. Round four, in my opinion, was when the fight really, really picked up. I noticed quite early on in that round that the crowd were getting restless, a bit of booing, but Terence Crawford started to be a lot more aggressor with two left hands, which at that point of the fight were his best punches. They physically rocked Victor Postol. made his knees dip, and more importantly, made him look really, really, really uncomfortable. And also in that round, I loved the confidence of Terence Crawford from myself personally. He was leading with right uppercuts, and when Postol tried to let go of his jab, Terence Crawford was firing straight back over the jab with straights and hooks. And towards the end of that round, Victor Postol's jab looked very, very disorientated. He didn't know what to do with it, because mainly he didn't know what were coming back, because Terence Crawford looked very, very comfortable trading with Victor Postol when Postol tried to unleash his jab, and I loved that. That is the kind of fighter which I like to watch. Someone who can counterpunch, be very, very slick, but not afraid to let his hands go when the opponent's trying to jab his head off. And round 5 is clearly the most decisive round of the fight, full stop, for anyone who has seen it. The first punch of that round, Terence Crawford puts down Victor Postol with a left hand, but gamely enough, Victor Postol gets up. He tries to come forward and clinch and try to get his legs back, get his mind clear, and also to roughhouse Terence Crawford a little bit. But Terence Crawford counters this by spinning Victor Postol in the clinch. And then into the final minute of the round, Victor Postol goes down again off the left hand. So Terence Crawford is showing that he can put down an elite light welterweight when Victor Postol was just trying to come forward and try and be even more aggressive. So that was the 5th round, very, very decisive. Overall, a very, very entertaining round. Round 6, though, very, very quiet again. Goes back to being subdued. Victor Postol does have success with the right hand hitting the body, but at that point, Terence Crawford was not really getting slowed down as such. As was in his full rhythm. He was the man in control, and both shots to me just a little bit reeked of desperation. A little bit. Terence Crawford looked very, very comfortable and started getting his shots off on his own again, and really minimising the effect of what Postol could actually do. Round 7 and 8, Terence Crawford was wobbling, buzzing Victor Postol, whatever you want to call it, with, again, the left hand. The left hand, which is now seemingly to become well known of being a very, very hard punch from Terence Crawford. I know he's a southpaw, that is his natural attacking punch, but it is showing to start some power. But in the 8th, Victor Postol starts to loosen up a little bit, tries to throw punches in bunches. Everyone is told to do that against slippery southpaws or slick fighters in general. Put your punches in bunches. But Terence Crawford is so slick and elusive. After Victor Postol lets go of his first punch and misses, Terence Crawford is on his bike and out of the way. Like, literally boxing rings round Victor Postol, who was almost letting go his punches a lot more freely now at this point. He was still very, very upright and very, very Eastern European robotic likeness. So into round 9, Postol is still forcing the pace, but Terence Crawford at this point really has got Victor Postol's number, just leaning back and counter-punching at will with left, right, hooks, uppercuts, body attacks, and at some points of that round was pushing Postol back, which for a typical counter-punching fighter, which Terence Crawford is known for, again, very good to see. It's showing a lot more dimensions to Terence Crawford's game. And Terence Crawford in round 10 was again counter-punching, just being very, very elusive. Victor Postol couldn't really, really get close to do any damage, so I gave that round to Crawford once again. Round 11, another decisive point in the fight is Victor Postol's told in the corner that he's got to go out and stop Terence Crawford, and he does attempt to stop Terence Crawford. A lot more active, really pushing home on the front foot, trying to be the more aggressor, and he is having success. He's roughing up Crawford, he's landing punches lefts and rights again. That jab seemed to come back into some sort of life and action and was disrupting Terence Crawford at times. But in a clinch, Victor Postol takes a liberty and clips Terence Crawford around the back of the head. Referee Tony Weeks is not really happy with that and deducts a point from Victor Postol. And at that point, I thought, I can see it, I can understand it. It is the 11th round. I would have been a little bit more lenient. That is just my opinion. But nonetheless, you can't really complain at a point being taken off at that point. It had happened although there were not many clinches in the fight, Victor Postol was doing that as a little bit of a habit. So I can understand why Tony Weeks took the point off, in all honesty. And round 12, Postol again, the much more aggressive in the round, starts to land with right hands, but Terence Crawford just comes back with even better left hands of his own. And again, buzzing Postol, wobbling him, like with left hands over the jab, hooks around the jab of Postol. And again, just the pattern of the fight was whatever Victor Postol could do, Terence Crawford could do 10 times better. So the fight did go to the judges' scorecards, and very, very, very decisive. Two judges had the fight scored at 118-107 in favour of Terence Crawford, and the other judge had it by a smaller margin, by a round of 117-108. Again, all three judges were in favour of Terence Crawford, and he becomes the unified champion at £140, claiming the WBO, which he already held, and ripping off the WBC belt of Victor Postol, and he has the WBO belt and the WBC belt in his possession. And the main news to come out of that is that a lot of people from HBO, I will name Max Kellerman as one of the people who have said this, that HBO are wanting to see Terence Crawford come up against Manny Pacquiao. That would be a very, very, very interesting fight. Both southpaws, both very, very, very aggressive fighters in various ways. Terence Crawford is a much more attacking counter-puncher, and with Manny Pacquiao, he's been there, he's seen it, he's done it. He's like lightning with his hands. He's coming back off a good win over Tim Bradley at welterweight. We all know that Manny Pacquiao is not a big welterweight. He's more suited to light welterweight, in my opinion. So one thing I want to see the fight. It's going to be pay-per-view. Terence Crawford finally gets his shot at a big world name who's transatlantic, globally recognised as one of the best fighters in the world. Despite his losses, he's been there, seen it, do it, and done it at many weights. So, also on that bill, we had Oscar Valdez, who has been tipped to be a future pound-for-pound ranked fighter. And he had his maiden attempt at a world title. He contested the WBO featherweight title, which was previously held by Ukrainian Vasyl Lomachenko, before he moved up to junior lightweight. or super featherweight, whatever you want to call it once again. And Oscar Valdez, it was what it was this fight. He knocked out his opponent, Matias Rueda, in 2 rounds and claims the WBO belt. So, for one, I'm very, very excited about this young kid. Very, very talented fighter. Very aggressive, but also very technically sound. And a lot of things will come together for Oscar Valdez. If I was to make a pick of one to watch right now, it would be Oscar Valdez, certainly at featherweight. He's got a lot of fights there lined up for him, potentially. So I'm not too sure who and when his mandatory is going to take place due to the fact he's only recently won the belt. But watch this space on Valdez. Definitely one to watch. So, coming on to Friday/Saturday's action previews. We will start off with the big bill in Leeds, Yorkshire, England, with the highly anticipated Leeds Rumble bill. As I mentioned earlier at the start of the show, this card is promoted by Eddie Hearn and Matchroom Sports and to feature live on Sky Sports. And it's the Leeds bill, so we all know who's going to be headlining. Leeds' favourite son and one of the UK's biggest ticket sellers, and that is all he's known for, according to some people on social media. That is Josh Warrington, and he will be defending his WBC International Featherweight title against Patrick Hyland Jr. of Ireland. And I, for one, am very, very interested in this fight because this is Josh Warrington coming up against a solid top 10/top 15 ranked fighter. Patrick Hyland has only lost to elite level guys, is a tough fighter, he's got good boxing ability, is a bit of a puncher. He's not a knockout artist by any stretch of imagination. He's not going to knock you out in one punch, but he can put flurries together, and if you are not on your game, you're going to get seriously hurt, and he will get you out of there. So Josh Warrington has definitely got to be on his game, alert, and in my opinion, just do what Josh Warrington does. Grind out a result, be active, try and set the pace, push your man back, and take it from there. Josh Warrington, to me, I think within 12 months, he could challenge for a world title, whether that is against Lee Selby, but quotes out of the Lee Selby camp is saying that they're done with Josh Warrington. But that is very, very harsh considering that 2.5 years ago, Josh Warrington was still fighting at Leeds Town Hall and various other small venues around Yorkshire and the north of England. But if that fight cannot get made, with Josh Warrington, I believe, being number 2 in the WBC World Rankings, is going to be either be a voluntary defence for Gary Russell Jr., who is the champion, or will be put into a final eliminator or contest, what I like to call the final eliminator belt within the WBC, which is the WBC Silver, and be challenging for Gary Russell Jr. within 12 to 18 months. So watch this space on that, and it's going to be a very, very interesting fight, Josh Warrington and Patrick Hyland. I am very excited, and I am sure you listeners at home or wherever you may be will be as well. So we will go down the main televised fights on the bill, because if we went through all the fights, we would be here, or you will be here, in fact, till the next day, because it is a big card with lots of fights on. So we will move on to the return of Luke Campbell versus Angeles Mendez. Angeles Mendez was a former world champion at lightweight. He's lost to Francis Barthélemy twice. Well, I say twice, but the first fight was ruled a non-contest when Francis Barthélemy hit him on the bell and he got knocked out. So that is what Angeles Mendez is known for from a fighting perspective, his 2 fights with Francis Barthélemy. But Angeles Barthélemy is, although he's coming off a loss in his last fight, Mendez is a very, very tough fighter. He will come at you all night. He's very, very slippery if you push him back on the front foot, but he can come back at you. He's a very, very aggressive body puncher, and he's just, overall, is a hard night's work for anyone, but someone who just falls short at the real elite level. So this fight makes it interesting for Luke Campbell, because in my opinion, this is just my opinion, I don't know how far Luke Campbell can go, because that is not me slagging him off in any way whatsoever. I do think he can be a world champion. He just needs to prove to me that, considering after his loss in 2015 on his opponent just escaped my mind for a minute, but it was on the Anthony Joshua and Dillian White belt in December of last year, where like he lost, he was outclassed. So, but he's got a new training team. He's training in Florida now, and in his last performance against Gary Sykes, he looked a completely different animal. He looked very, very strong, very, very aggressive as well, and was putting his shots together and mainly sitting down on his punches a heck of a lot more and causing actual damage against a tough domestic fighter in Gary Sykes. He is a good fighter. A lot of people were slating him for taking that fight, but it was for a belt. It was for the Commonwealth title, which he won in 2 rounds. So overall, Luke Campbell, this will be a good test of where Luke Campbell is at this moment in time. As I said, this fight happens to be for the WBC Silver Lightweight title, which means he will be, I'm not sure if this is a final eliminator as such, but it will put him in line potentially for a shot at the champion, which is Dejan Zlatikanen of Montenegro. And talking of Dejan Zlatikanen, he will be facing the winner of Anthony Crawler and Jorge Linares if he chooses to, because the WBC have made things very, very complicated in the lightweight division, where like they've got 2 champions with Jorge Linares, champion in recess / diamond belt holder, and you have Dejan Zlatikanen classed as a regular champion in my opinion, and the winner of Jorge Linares and Anthony Crawler must face Dejan Zlatikanen to win the WBC belt. So the real champion in my eyes is Dejan Zlatikanen. Jorge Linares is the champion in recess. So I've spoke about that fight previously. I've done articles about it. I've done it on other shows. So we will let that one just go away. So moving on to the next fight on that bill, which is of significant interest, is a fight for the British light welterweight title between the champion Tyrone Nurse and newcomer to the light welterweight division, Tommy Coyle. And Tyrone Nurse, in his last fight against Willie Limond, a lot of people stood up and took notice that Tyrone Nurse for a while had a reputation of being a boring fighter, just willing to sit on the back foot and counter punch his opponents into submission and just win on a wide points decision, which has usually been the case with Tyrone Nurse. But Tyrone Nurse, he became a lot more aggressive and a lot more fan-friendly and became, I don't want to say this harshly, but he became a lot more appealing to watch in his fight against Willie Limond. Although I believe that is a lot to do with it with having a good dance partner, which Willie Limond is, where like Willie Limond came up on the front foot and tried to get his punches off, which caused Tyrone Nurse to meet Willie Limond head on, and he looked good doing so, Tyrone Nurse, and stopped Willie Limond mid-rounds in that fight. So, and the reason why I say that the Tyrone Nurse and Tommy Coyle fight is interesting, because in my opinion, Tommy Coyle is a younger version of Willie Limond, where like bites down his gum shield, comes forward, and he will try and knock you out. So this fight has a lot of potential to be a bit of a barn burner. If Tyrone Nurse performs like he did against Willie Limond, and Tommy Coyle does what he does best, which is on the front foot, then we have got one heck of a fight here. And in my opinion, if it goes like that, I cannot see this fight going for 12 rounds. And that would be a very, very good spectacle for you guys at home watching the fight and the fans in the arena, and overall just a good old-fashioned British title fight. Who am I going to pick for that fight? I'm not too sure, but I would favour Tyrone Nurse, just simply due to the fact that although he does seem to come forward a lot more now, but he's got the boxing ability in his repertoire where like he can relax on the back foot and counter Tommy Coyle when he comes forward. On the next fight on the bill, right, this is the one which has got a heck of a lot of people talking. It's the battle of the heavyweights. Two fighters who are very active on social media, had a lot of toing and throwing, insults, Mickey taking, you name it, the works. Always a topic of conversation in their interviews with various news outlets such as HitHard News, IFL TV, Behind the Gloves, you name it, they talk about each other. I'm talking about, obviously, about Dillian Whyte versus Dave Allen, and this fight is for the WBC International Heavyweight title. And what can I say about this fight? Well, these are two fighters who can only fight one way, and that is to meet head on in the ring and just have a fight. Dillian Whyte is a very, very aggressive fighter. He loves hooking. Dave Allen loves hooking as well. He can punch straight, same as Dillian Whyte. Dillian Whyte can bang, but in his last performance, he didn't look all that. He looked very, very sluggish. Was that down to the injury which he had, which he sustained against Anthony Joshua in December? Dave Allen, he's been very, very inactive due to promotional issues with Dennis Hobson. He's changed trainers from Steffi Bull to Dominic Ingle. So overall, this is a very, very interesting fight. And a lot of people are jumping on the Dillian Whyte bandwagon due to his performance against Anthony Joshua. although he got knocked out, he's been the only man so far to seriously hurt Anthony Joshua, and if Dillian Whyte was in better shape, he could have very well took out Anthony Joshua, and we could have had a different heavyweight scene across the board if Dillian Whyte did manage to pull off the upset, but we didn't, and we get this cracking fight between Dillian Whyte and Dave Allen. As I said, this fight is for the WBC International Heavyweight title, but this fight was rumoured to be for the British Heavyweight title, but there's a lot of complications involved with that belt as such. The board are wanting to insist that Sam Sexton gets a shot first, ideally against Dillian Whyte or Hughie Fury. Those are two names which I've seen mentioned. So this fight was not that for the British title for various reasons, but there is a title on the line. The winner gets a world top 15 ranking or a top 20 ranking. I'm not sure how the WBC rankings work because there's so many there's so many trinkets outside of the international and silvers. You have Mediterraneans, you have North Americans, Central Americans. So, but anyway, the winner of this fight gets a world ranking, whether it be top 15 or top 20. So the next fight of interest before we move on to the action at the Barclays Center in Brooklyn, New York, is Gamal Yafai versus Barnes' Josh Whale. So again, this is a fight which I have a lot of self-interest in because Josh Whale I've known him for a long time. He's a good fighter, not always achieved his potential, but he's settled down now in his career. He's now been trained by Steffi Bull, managed by Steffi Bull, and been a lot more selective who and when he fights, because Josh Whale used to fight on 3 days notice, 4 days notice, 5 days notice. Two examples of that was Stuart Hall back in 2012 and Kid Galahad the year after. But Josh Whale faces the Commonwealth title holder at super bantamweight, Gamal Yafai. Gamal Yafai is a former podium member of the GB amateur setup. He's the brother of Cal Yafai, who will be having a world title shot soon, according to Eddie Hearn and various outlets. And about the fight itself, well, again, two fighters who do not know how to box on the back foot, they only know how to fight one way, and that is fighting on the front foot and just throw a load of bombs, because Gamal Yafai is certainly a banger. He's definitely a big puncher to the body. He carries power. Same as Josh Whale. Again, just another rugged come-forward fighter. Very, very aggressive as well. So a fight which is going to be, again, a bit of a barn burner while it lasts. Josh Whale is tough as come. Gamal Yafai is a terrific young prospect. If Gamal Yafai was to win this fight, he will more than likely be targeting a British title fight at some point. I believe Gary McDonnell holds that belt at this moment in time. Don't hold me on that. I should really know that. And if Josh Whale wins, he finally wins a major title, because domestically Josh Whale has been a bridesmaid at the level. He's lost out at British level to Jazza Dickens, and he had a draw against Gavin McDonnell, again for the British title, which I thought was very harshly done by. I thought Josh Wale just nicked it, but I could understand the draw. Fights at bantamweight against Stuart Hall, where like he got majorly outclassed. So he is the typical bridesmaid at domestic level. He's a good fighter. If you're not on your game, he will beat you. But he always seems to, like, when he steps up, he always just drops that little bit short. So, again, it's a very interesting fight. And overall, a very interesting card. Because also on the bill, we have the returns of Frankie Funtime Gavin. He's had a long layoff due to a suspension from the British Boxing Board of Control for a misdemeanor with the law. And Sam Egginton coming back after his defeat to Bradley Ski, where he was dethroned of his British and Commonwealth welterweight titles. And the news on the grapevine is that Frankie Gavin and Sam Egginton are finally to face each other in October in Birmingham, and I believe that will be on the undercard of Carl Yafai's world title fight when that gets announced. So that's the action from Leeds, live on Sky Sports on Saturday night. So moving on to the early hours of Sunday morning, late Saturday night, whatever you want to call it, we have the action from the Barclays Centre, Brooklyn, New York. This card is set to be shown on Box Nation, for those who wanted to know. And the main attraction on this bill is we have Carl Frampton, Belfast Carl Frampton, facing off his long-time rival as such, because these did fight in the same weight division at Super Bantamweight, and they were both world champions around the same time. And I'm talking about Leo Santa Cruz. So, as I said, this fight is taking place at featherweight, and this belt is going... Not this belt. This fight is going to be for the WBA super title at featherweight. It's a little bit of a shame to see the WBA bring back all these super titles once again. I thought the situation was done and dusted and clarified, but it seems like that the WBA have brought back the super titles back into existence and back into play. But either way, it's a good fight, and it should be for a world title. So at least the WBA have got something right. So again, this is Carl Frampton's debut at featherweight. I don't believe he's boxed at featherweight before, and Santa Cruz will be having his third fight at featherweight. His previous fights were against Abner Mares in 2015, where he won the WBA Super Championship belt at featherweight, and his first defense of the belt was against Kiko Martinez earlier on this year. So again, very interesting fight. One fighter in Leo Santa Cruz, very, very aggressive, throws very, very straight, likes to box on the front foot. He likes punching to the head. He kind of ignores body shots because he has a lot of belief in his power. Very, very quick when he lets go of his hands. Although there is a question mark about the level of opposition he has faced to a certain degree. Although he has fought Abner Mares and he won that fight, in my opinion, very, very convincingly. So the questions about his opposition can kind of be scratched off a little bit, but there is still obvious self-doubt because it is common knowledge that Leo Santa Cruz is a well-protected fighter. He is favoured by Al Haymon, his advisor, where where like it got to the point where Al Heyman actually bought him out of his Golden Boy contract a couple of years ago. That is fact. It is very reported. So Leo Santa Cruz has been a protected fighter, but now it seems like he's been let off the leash as such and being told to face these big boys as such, the big names, for top quality fighters. So on that point, full credit to Al Heyman for laying down the rules. And Carl Frampton's very, very hard to describe as a fighter, because at times he can be very, very conservative with his punches, where like he's more than happy to let his opponent fall short and counter, or to get on the inside and also on the pace, because he will be the shorter man by quite a distance. Carl Frampton is only 5'3", 5'2", 5'4". I'm not sure about that. There's only 2 inches in height between those figures, which I have just mentioned. So Carl Frampton is a little bit of an enigma. He is regardless of what way he fights, he is very, very good to watch. Very good. Technically superior, in my opinion, to Leo Santa Cruz. But one doubt which I have in this fight is the size and reach advantage which Leo Santa Cruz will hold over Carl Frampton. So it's going to be interesting to see if Leo Santa Cruz boxes smart and uses the jab to offset Carl, and if Carl Frampton can use his superior boxing skills to nullify the effects of the physical advantages which Leo Santa Cruz will have. So overall it's a very, very good fight. Very good fight. One of the best fights of this weekend, and I'm glad that this fight is actually happening, because this fight, as I said, has been taught for a good couple of years in various boxing circles within UK and Ireland. Not so much in the United States, because a lot of people are thinking, who the hell's Carl Frampton? So Carl Frampton now gets a wide US audience, and let's hope he lives up to the hype of the words of Barry McGuigan, who believes he can be a transatlantic superstar in the United States and the UK and Ireland. I, for one, hope that Carl Frampton can please Barry. So also on the bill, we have the long-time return of two-weight world champion Mikey Garcia after a 2.5 year layoff due to promotional issues with his former promoter Bob Arum of Top Rank. Mikey Garcia will be, for this fight, he's not competing at lightweight, which you would have thought would have been the logical fight to have, considering he was a champion at featherweight and super featherweight. He's going back at light welterweight because he says he wants to concentrate on getting back at the lightweight division, fight at that weight. But he thought, take it steady, cut down the weight gradually. Overall, very, very logical. I cannot blame him for that. Mikey Garcia will be facing, on his return, Helio Rojas. And again, this fight will be at light welterweight. And after this fight, it should be a foregone conclusion for this fight. So Mikey Garcia has made it publicly aware that he does want to move down to lightweight, as I previously mentioned, and he is targeting Terry Flanagan for his WBO lightweight title. And considering that all the belts which Mikey Garcia has won has been with the WBO at world level, so he's wanting to show loyalty by targeting the WBO belt again. Cannot blame him for that. He's obviously got a good relationship. So that fight would make logical sense if that fight could happen. But Frank Warren, Terry Flanagan's promoter, seems to have other ideas where, like, he's made it public knowledge. As I mentioned on last week's podcast, where Frank Warren is wanting to target Dave Aslati Cannon and make a unification bout. And there's also been talk regarding Terry Flanagan of Vasyl Lomachenko moving up to lightweight early 2017. So it's going to be interesting to see what the Garcia camp and Frank Warren and the Terry Flanagan camp come up with if reports are to be true. So, also fighting on the bill, and I've got right here a big question mark. I have no idea if Danny Jacobs is fighting on this bill because he is still listed as fighting on the bill, but he has no opponent named as yet. He seems missing in action. I have no idea what's happening. The last time I heard about a fight involving Danny Jacobs on this card or any card in the near future was a rematch with Sergio Mora. We all know that Sergio Mora pulled out due to injury, but with the reputable listing sites of the fight cards, Danny Jacobs is still named as fighting with no opponent as named. If I am incorrect on this information, I do apologise. So moving on to the next fight on the bill of interest, we have Sergio Rabchenko. I believe still managed in some capacity by Ricky Hatton, long-time trainer and manager, who I believe will also be fighting for under the PBC banner for the first time. And Sergey Rabchenko will be facing a well-known American Tony Harrison, and this fight will be at junior middleweight, light middleweight. Sorry, I'll stumbling over my words. Sergey Rabchenko, he is a good caliber of light middleweight. He's only failed at the top level. He was involved in my opinion, a very harsh fight with Anthony Mundine, where I thought he won, but was on the bad end of a hometown decision as such. And as I said, Rabchenko will be facing off Tony Harrison, being there, seen it and done it on the domestic circuit in the United States, but overall is seen as a fighter who could get there but needs to show a little bit more dedication to the sport. He is what he is. He's part of a Who Needs Him club. He's a very, very good fighter, very slippery, and just a tough guy overall. It's one of them fights where Sergey Rabchenko should win in most people's opinion, but Tony Harrison, if Rabchenko is not on his game, Rabchenko will be on the end of something extremely hard from the right hand. So, and moving on again to the last fight of interest, in my opinion, on this bill. The full listing for the bill is up on HitHardNews.com. Is Paulie Malignaggi. I have a soft spot for Paulie Malignaggi, and he fights Gabriel Brecco on the bill. Paulie Malignaggi has stated as soon as he fights, straight away he's going to head to the shower and commentate on the main action. So Paulie Malignaggi has got a long night's work from that point of view. But again, Paulie Malignaggi in recent weeks has reiterated the point is before he retires, he wants to target his coveted EBU welterweight belt. And I, for one, wish him every success in that venture. As I said, I'm a big Paulie Malignaggi fan, and I do wish him every success on his continued conquest for the European title. So that rounds up that action. But on Friday night, from Quebec City in Canada, we have the return of a very, very controversial character in Adonis Superman Stevenson, and he will be defending his WBC light heavyweight title against Thomas Williams Jr. And a lot of people will be thinking, who the hell is Thomas Williams Jr.? Well, Thomas Williams Jr. in his last fight, he really did upset the apple cart by knocking out Edwin Rodriguez. Rodriguez at that point only had one loss, and that was to Andre Ward. And Andre Ward, we all know, is a pound-for-pound fighter. No disgrace in that. But Thomas Williams Jr. is a fighter who's not afraid to get his hands mucky, go in the trenches and trade leather. And that is the trap which Edwin Rodriguez fell into, and Edwin Rodriguez was severely punished. Again, because he got knocked down twice and was KO'd in the second round. But as we know, Adonis Stevenson, as I earlier mentioned, he is a controversial character, and a lot of that is down to the fact since he's won the WBC light heavyweight title, in recent years his caliber opponents have been very, very, very underwhelming, and I, for one, I am disappointed. For a long time it was a toss-up between who was the best light heavyweight, between Adonis Stevenson and Sergey Kovalev, his longtime rival. But now we've got various other fighters in the mix. You've got Artur Beterbiev, Andre Ward, Jürgen Bremer in a good fight coming up, which could surpass any fight what Adonis Stevenson has had in the last 2 years. But again, I will go into the Jürgen Bremer situation later on in the show. So what realistically do we expect if Adonis Stevenson was to be successful in this fight against Thomas Williams Jr.? What does he do next? As I said, it's a very, very frustrating situation, because in the past he has played the political card against Sergey Kovalev, his famous switch from HBO to Showtime to sign with Al Heyman, put political pressure on that fight not being made. There were talks between the both camps. There's been public jostling between Stevenson and Kovalev, but Kovalev has moved on to bigger and better things. He has a fight with Andre Ward in November, and against, in my opinion now, a fighter who has surpassed Adonis Stevenson at light heavyweight, and he's only had 2 fights at the division, which is Andre Ward. And Andre Ward is a proven pound-for-pound fighter, and overall skill-wise a much better fighter than Adonis Stevenson. So those two are out of the running. Then we have the question of Artur Beterbiev, his fellow countryman via Russia, a world-class amateur and becoming a world-class professional. This man could be an absolute wrecking ball. Although he is 29 years old, he's a good fight, very good aggressive fighter, and in my opinion, his style would be all wrong for Adonis Stevenson. So aggressive, will will smother Stevenson's work, pushing back on the front foot, on the back foot, sorry. And overall, just a hard night's work for Adonis Stevenson. So I cannot see Stevenson taking the Arturpia fight. And then we have the question of his mandatory, who also features on the bill. That is Elder Alvarez. He is from Colombia. His last fight was against the recent foe of Sergey Kovalev and goes by the name of Isaac Shalemba. He won a hard fight against Shalemba. It went to the scorecards and put on a very good, solid boxing performance. Although there were chinks in the armour with Alvarez's defence, he was getting caught with silly shots and being pushed back. And that is saying a lot, considering that Shalemba is not what you would call a full-blown aggressive fighter, a fighter who's slippery, likes to counter, very, very defensive. Alvarez on the attack can be absolutely ferocious, vicious hooker. He loves the left hook and the left hook and the left hook to the body. He has the potential to be world class, and he is Adonis Stevenson's mandatory. So, the mandatory will be due, I believe, within 6 months. So it'll be interesting to see what Adonis Stevenson does. Does he fight Alvarez or does he vacate? I don't want to say what I think, but I can see Adonis Stevenson being stripped of the belt. I will say that. So, as I mentioned, his mandatory Alvarez is fighting on the bill. He is fighting Robert Berridge, who is a late replacement for former champion at light heavyweight in what's his name now? What is it? Chad Dawson. I do apologise for the lapse. Chad Dawson. So he's and Edridge has came in on 10, 11, 12 days notice. So it is what it is. It's just a keep busy fight now for Alvarez. He would have been tested against Dawson, but Alvarez is safe in the knowledge that he has got the mandatory spot all signed, sealed, and delivered to face Stevenson. So also featuring on the bill of any note is Colombian heavyweight Oscar Rivas, unbeaten, 19-0. A very, very technical fighter. Very good to watch. On the small side for a heavyweight, only 6'1.5", 6'1", but a very, very skilled amateur as well. Won various Pan American Games, ranked in World Championships. Good fighter. A good fighter who's wanting to join the mix at heavyweight among the elite names. And he definitely has the skill set to do it. Does he have the size? We'll wait and see. But I think his boxing ability is absolutely spot on and cracking for a heavyweight. Good movement, good footwork, and he can bang. As most heavyweights can, but this kid can bang. And he will be facing Jeremiah Carpenter, another undefeated fighter, but at a much lower level. He is a Pennsylvanian champion, I believe, so a state title, and his record reads 12-0 with 1 draw. So moving on to the other news, which I mentioned right at the start of this show, is last week we had the news of Nathan Cleverly will be facing, at last, there's been a lot of talk about this fight for the last 5 years when when Nathan Cleverley was world champion, it was on and off, but at one point or another, one man always seemed to be injured, which is a shame. But at least now the fight is happening, and Nathan Cleverley will be facing WBA regular champion Jürgen Blähmer on the 1st of October in Germany, I believe. And this fight made logical sense considering the very good working relationship between Jürgen Blähmer's promotion, Sauerland, with the boys, Kalle and Nisa Sauerland, and Nathan Cleverley's promoter, Eddie Hearn. So Kalle Sauerland did say last week was that their first choice was Jürgen Blähmer versus Adonis Stevenson, but very early on, Kalle Sauerland said that Adonis Stevenson had no intention of fighting Jürgen Blähmer for whatever reason, said he was very, very difficult to work with. So they thought, we'll move on, and they came up with two names. One of them was Andres Fonfara. He was since defeated by Joe Smith Jr. in dramatic fashion. And Nathan Cleverley. Nathan Cleverley, former world champion, lost to Sergey Kovalev when Sergey Kovalev was a relative unknown, particularly on the UK scene. So there's no shame in losing to a true world-class fighter. Cleverly well known for his domestic bust-ups with Tony Bellew at light heavyweight and light cruiser. Not light cruiserweight, cruiserweight. So, and his valiant display against Andres Fonfara in 2015 last year, where he was involved in a fight which had more than 2,000 punches thrown throughout the duration of the fight. And by God, what a fight it was. And his stock since then has just skyrocketed back to where it belongs at light heavyweight as one of the best. And he's got a world title shot against Jürgen Blähmer. So I, for one, will be wishing again Nathan Cleverley all the luck in the world, because I do genuinely believe he is a top light heavyweight. A very he shows a lot of heart, a lot of determination. And Jürgen Blähmer is a very upright, technical boxer, likes to box at range, but does carry quite a lot of snap in his punches. So, 1st of October, live on Sky Sports, WBA regular light heavyweight title on the line. And to the final piece of business on the show today, we have Ruslan Chagayev, recently stripped of his WBA regular heavyweight title in rather strange circumstances, and I just don't get what the WBA are trying to get on with as such, because, as I said, Ruslan Chagayev was stripped of his WBA belt for failing to pay sanctioning fees when he faced Fres Oquendo in 2014 when the WBA regular title was vacant. And also, a rematch was scheduled between Ruslan Chagayev and Fres Oquendo, which was court-ordered. But one stipulation of that outcome was that Chagayev and his promoter was supposed to pay $42,325,000 US in sanctioning fees plus costs before that fight was to take place. There was nothing wrong with Oquendo's side whatsoever. He paid his fees and was in no trouble. It seems from the court judgment and with the statements coming out of the WBA is the emphasis was on Shagayev to pay his fees. And if he hasn't paid his fees, they did the right thing. So at least Oquendo will get his shots at the WBA title, as it seems at this moment in time. He does have the backing of the court order with the WBA support. So that will be a very interesting situation to see, and the rumour mill has already been into overdrive on this fight within the hardcore boxing circles and news outlets, where in an article with the World Boxing News, where they spoke with Lucas Brown. Lucas Brown was given a suspension of 6 months, but that is due to expire in September. And Lucas Brown has talked about the proposition of Brown versus Oquendo for the title and the possibility of having that fight in Australia, which would be interesting to say the least. But again, that is all talk at this moment in time. There's nothing set in concrete on what the situation is with that fight. So I believe that is everything for tonight. So I would like to say thank you very much for listening to this week's edition of the HitHard News Show.